it's time to move into this wonderful evening of awards that recognize the courage and the imagination and the transformative leadership needed to safeguard life on our planet. We have two awards tonight, the prestigious Parker Gentry Award and the inaugural E.O. Wilson Legacy Award for transformative conservation leadership. And they remind us that conservation, in its essence, is a moral enterprise informed by both ethics, wisdom, and action. And so as we move into this next phase of the evening, I'd like to introduce the Parker Gentry Award. And we will have Leslie D'Souza do the formal announcement. But because I knew Al Gentry so well, I would just like to say a few things to put these two men in perspective. That famously, Ted Parker was an ornithologist who could recognize 4,000 bird calls. If he heard a bird that he didn't know, it was a species new to science. And Gentry possessed what E.O. Wilson called the taxonomic eye, an inherent capacity to detect variation at a glance. When he looked at a forest, unlike most botanists, his gaze reflexively fell on what was novel or unusual. And since he was so familiar with the flora, he could be confident that if a plant was new to him, it was new to science. He would collect over his lifetime, a lifetime cut short by the terrible accident that saw Ted and Al drop out of the sky in a plane over the Ecuadorian mountains on the frontier with Colombia. He would collect nearly 80,000 specimens. Now you have to understand, Schulte is one of the greatest Amazon explorers of all time, collected 32,000 specimens. So nobody had collected anything like that before. And here's the critical thing. At a time when taxonomic identification virtually demanded fertile specimens, that meant flower and or fruits, Gentry published a 900-page field guide to the families and genera of woody plants of Northwest South America, all based on vegetative characteristics alone: leaf shape, bark, odor. Unless you were a tropical botanist at the time, you can't begin to understand how revolutionary that was, what a contribution that was. Indeed, in the entire saga of plant exploration, Al Gentry was one of the very few who could realign species and genera simply by holding a blossom to the light. And so on behalf of the awards committee, I'm pleased to welcome this year's presenter, Dr. Leslie D'Souza, who is a senior conservation ecologist at the Field Museum's Keller Science Action Center. Leslie is a pioneer in freshwater biodiversity. She integrates indigenous knowledge, groundbreaking science, community partnerships. I love saying this stuff about my friends. It's just so great. They're just right there, you know. I just have to go on one more line. Okay. Anyway, the thing is, she's not only a fantastic scientist, she's an incredible humanist, an incredibly lovely person, and so it's just a joy to introduce her to you tonight. Thanks very much.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Wade, for that lovely introduction, and it's so wonderful to have you all here tonight in Stanley Field Hall. It's been a wonderful day, a long day, day-long effort, I should say, shining a spotlight on nature and the shared urgency that we face in addressing the biodiversity and climate crisis. I'm a scientist here at the Keller Science Action Center, as Wade mentioned, and I work on an interdisciplinary team dedicated to translating science into conservation action. We work to conserve natural areas and to improve the quality of life for people both here in the Chicagoland area and the Andes-Amazon region of South America. As a member of the Parker Gentry Award Committee, I'm thrilled tonight to celebrate our 2025 awardee. So special way to have somebody who knew Ted and knew Al Gentry here with us tonight to kind of initiate this award process or celebration. It's named after Ted Parker and Al Gentry, and these are two phenomenal scientists and dear friends of the Field Museum. The video that you're about to watch will give you a glimpse into who these men were and why we continue to honor their legacy through the Parker Gentry Award.
Parker Gentry Award is an award that honors two incredible biologists, Ted Parker and Al Gentry. Ted Parker was an expert on birds. Al Gentry was an expert on plants. They were part of a team of 4 that were experts in their field. These 4 people could be dropped into the middle of nowhere and very quickly give you an assessment of why that place is special.
Ted Parker was an absolutely unique individual. He had a lifelong passion for birds.
He was unbelievable with birds, and a big part of that was focus. It was almost all that he thought about.
Even as an undergraduate at University of Arizona, Ted began to experiment with audio recording of birds, way ahead of, almost everyone else.
The clear whistled song of the undulated tinamou is a characteristic early morning sound of river edge or low-lying forest.
He showed people that working in the field and assembling good data sets about what was in a given area in the neotropics, which is some of the richest avifaunas on the planet, was actually possible, but also to be able to do it by ear. Because a lot of times in tropical forest, you're not going to see the individual species, but you will definitely hear them.
Basically, Ted heard a bird once and he remembered it forever.
He was just extraordinarily generous with everyone. And he motivated them to go after their own passions and then to use their passion to do something for conservation.
Gentry was one of the first members of the Rapid Inventory team at Conservation International. He had a long list of places that he still hadn't gotten to, places that he thought, this place is going to be really special. It needs to be protected.
That was what Al was about. That's how you make discoveries. You can't just trudge around the footsteps of other people. You got to make your own footsteps.
It was just incredible, the amount of work that he did and the variety of work that he did. He wrote the best field guide to Amazonian plants. He floated the most hypotheses. He collected the most data.
Al was very meticulous about making sure that the taxonomy in his studies, his inventories, was dead on.
And it was this kind of detail in the Rapid Inventory reports that made Gentry's contribution such an inspiration to people. It wasn't just a list of plant species. It was full of this sense of wonder and discovery and the importance of the places that they were visiting.
He was a mentor to many, many, many people. And he did that over and over again. And as I say, he did it all over the world. He certainly did it a lot in Latin America.
Gentry's impact was huge and it's lasting. I'm writing a paper right now that tests a hypothesis that Gentry published in 1990. People are still using his papers, still using the specimens that he brought back from the field, still using the photographs that he took in the field, and the ideas that he floated about tropical plant communities. For biologists of my generation, the plane crash that killed Ted and Al was one of those events that really marks you. We remember where we were when it happened.
They lost two of the greatest neotropical scientists on that day. It was really, really an enormous blow.
These people were incredible. This is a legacy that we as a museum want to honor forever.
The first award was given out in 1996, and there has been an award every single year since then when we can all remember Ted and Al.
And it is given every year to folks who are doing something really important to conserve biological diversity, natural heritage. But the most important thing is that they are doing work on the ground and that it could be a model for other people. This award came together at the Field Museum because of the generosity of an anonymous donor. And I think as a museum that thinks about the past, is focused on the present and wants to change the future, this is exactly the sort of award we want to be giving out. And the legacies of Ted and Al are incredible. And to be able to celebrate that every year and at the same time focus on a new individual who's doing something amazing is really powerful.
Behind the collections of natural history museums around the world is a secret society of people who care for our specimens day after day, decades after decade. These collections that anchor our research are exhibits, welcoming scientists seeking to untangle the mysteries of the natural world and help us draw on the past to better understand and shape our future. Tonight, we're honoring one of those unsung heroes from that secret society. Someone who has spent 47 years making the Field Museum's bird collection one of the best in the world. Someone whose CV says, and I quote, "Retired officially in 2010, but never left." For tropical biologists like me, Dave is one of those legendary explorers we regard with awe because he's collected in some of the wildest forests on Earth. Like Ted Parker, Dave has traveled all over the tropics and deep into the tropics to study birds, to the hardest to reach tepuis and headwaters and mountaintops and wetlands of the Philippines, Peru, Uganda, Bolivia, Central African Republic, Venezuela, Bhutan, Malawi, Mexico, and Madagascar. I may have missed some, Dave. The places Dave worked are not the kind of places that were remote 50 years ago, but are easy to get to now. These are legendarily wild, remote places. Cerro de Neblina, Cebuya Islands, the Cordillera del Condor, the westernmost atoll of the Marshall Islands. Like Gentry, Dave brought back from those places countless specimens that will grace this museum for centuries, and that are still rewriting what we know about tropical birds. John Fitzpatrick tells the story of one of Dave's earliest trips to Peru, in which the first bird they pulled out of the nets was an undescribed species of wren. Dave's expeditions in the tropics inspired the creation of our rapid inventory program and have led to dozens of undescribed species, new records, and other ongoing discoveries. Shaped by legendary ornithologists like Robert MacArthur, John Terborg, and John Fitzpatrick, Dave is now a legend himself. His fieldwork and curation of the museum's collections have given him an encyclopedic knowledge of the whole world's birds, which he has shared in a humble, generous, and inimitable fashion with thousands of visiting researchers, students, and young birders. It is said that he has prepared more species of bird specimens in his lifetime than any other person on Earth. But this legendary tropical ornithologist is even better known for his 4 decades of work in Chicago, documenting spring and fall migration using salvaged birds from window strikes. The same year he was hired as a collection manager of bird collections of the Field Museum in 1978, he began collecting birds around McCormick Place. And to paraphrase his CV, he never stopped. From the outset, Dave saw this as an opportunity to help conserve birds and to gather long-term specimen data for conservation science. Because of Dave's work with window strikes, Chicago is a leader in lights-out programs that turn off outdoor lighting during bird migrations to reduce mortality. And because of Dave's faithful data collection over the decades, we can demonstrate very precisely how effective these programs are. And remember, the work on birds in the tropics and in the Chicago area, it's all connected. Around 25 bird species that are flying from Chicago this fall will arrive soon in tropical forests, where they'll overwinter before heading back here in the spring. Dave's work protects them both at both ends of their range. I want to say one last thing about Dave, which is that everyone I spoke to about him made a point of mentioning what a humble, gentle, and kind man he is. We don't give the Parker Gentry Award to people because they're nice, but in this day and age, Dave, I want to recognize your graciousness as another quality that makes you so worthy of this award. I'd like to call CEO and President Julian Siggers to come up here and present the award to Dave Willard. Sorry.
If you will join me on stage, Dave. Dave, that standing ovation is absolutely deserved. Congratulations on a lifetime of achievement. And thank you for all you've done for the discipline and all you've done for the field.
I'm not going to say much, but I promised Leslie that I wouldn't list all the people I thought should have gotten this award before I did. But it's an especially meaningful one to me because, as Leslie mentioned, I did know both Ted and Al and just have the most unbelievable respect for the work that they have done. I also want to acknowledge something that everyone in this room knows, is that nobody does these things by themselves. And in this room are probably 30 people who've been collaborators over the course of especially the McCormick Place project, but also in the work in South America. And people not just in this room and not friends who come from far places, but people who are now scattered all over the world doing other things in ornithology. I do want to say just one thing about the McCormick Place project. Most of you probably know by now that after years of not being able to get any solutions to literally thousands and thousands of birds dying at those windows, that after the birds themselves spoke with the one night of almost 1,000 birds in one night dying, and the press that brought about, that mitigation was done that is almost miraculous in terms of the change from 1923 to 1924 and now, and that mitigation seems to continue to be working. I just do feel like I need to emphasize that McCormick Place, we learned a lot from it, but it's one building, and Chicago is full of buildings that are problematic, and so the next step is to try with groups like the Chicago Bird Collision Monitors to get the same kinds of solutions spread to other buildings around the city. With that, I'm back to my seat.